from our discussion of film form that the form in which a movie's content is presented to audiences includes both the movie's narrative structure and its use of stylistic elements. In cinema, stylistic elements are the visual and acoustic elements that are used to tell the movie's story through images and sound. There are 4 different categories of stylistic elements that are used in movies: mise-en-scène, cinematography, editing, and sound. This week we're going to take an in-depth look at the first of these, mise-en-scène. As the reading for this week notes, mise-en-scène is French for to put in the scene. The term comes from theater, where it refers to the way that plays are staged. When it comes to movies, mise-en-scène refers to all of the creative decisions behind what appears on screen. So in other words, the way that the movie's diegesis, the story world, and the characters are visualized and brought to life on screen. Because all of the elements that make up a movie's mise-en-scène are central to the visual design and the staging of the movie's story, what is written in the script, you can think of mise-en-scène in terms of the look or the visual style of a film. There are 5 components that make up a movie's mise-en-scène: production design, costumes, makeup, and hairstyles, lighting, staging, and performance or acting. The first component of mise-en-scène that is discussed in the reading for this week, setting, can be a bit confusing, since setting is also a component of movie narratives. It might be helpful, therefore, to clarify that when we talk about setting as an aspect of a movie's narrative, we are talking about when and where the story takes place. In contrast, when we are talking about setting as an aspect of mise-en-scène, we are talking about the visual appearance of the spaces, both indoor and outdoor, where the movie's story takes place. So when we are analyzing setting as a component of mise-en-scène, we are analyzing how the setting looks, not what it is. Since production design is the film industry term for this, it might be equally helpful for our purposes to discuss this and for you to start thinking about this as production design rather than setting. Production design includes the design, the construction, and the decoration of all of the movie's sets. So in terms of design and construction, we are talking about the architecture and the physical layout of all of the places where the movie's action unfolds. In this image from the Darjeeling Express, the set includes the dimensions of the room and the shape of the window, as well as the placement of the furniture and the decoration of the space. The furniture and the decorations that make up the sets are referred to as the décor. In this image, the décor includes the bed, the sheets and the quilt, the night tables, and the lamps. It also includes the choice of color for the paint, the bedding, and the lampshades, what is known as the color palette for the production design for this scene. While color is included in a movie's mise-en-scène, color is not a separate component of mise-en-scène. Instead, it is part of both costume design and production design. When it comes to production design, the term color palette refers to the range of colors used in a particular set. In other words, for a particular location where part of the action of the movie takes place. In this example from The Rise of Skywalker, the color palette is made up of shades of black, gray, blue, and white, with a single splash of red for the lightsaber held by the character of Kylo Ren. In this example, which is from a different scene in the same movie, the color palette is made up of shades of brown, beige, gold, blue, and orange. While it is common for movies to have different color palettes for different sets, there are also some cases where the production designer and the director might decide to use a single color palette for the entire film. In the short film Bartholomew's Song, for example, every location in the film uses the same color palette of green, yellow, and white. Feature films sometimes do this too. Arrival, for example, has a color palette that is pretty consistent throughout the entire film, regardless of the setting. When it comes to our first example from the Darjeeling Express, the color palette includes the yellow of the paint on the walls, the fabric on the headboard, the quilt on the bed, and the bathrobe that the woman is wearing. It also includes the white of the sheets, the lampshades, and the towel on the woman's head, and also the lollipop stick, as well as the brown of the wood trim on the headboard, which is echoed in a slightly different shade by the brass light fixtures, the pink of the flower petals on the matching fabric on the headboard and the quilt, and the maroon in the center of the flowers, the trim on the woman's bathrobe, and the Bloody Mary on the bedside table. While the choice of colors in the decor and the other aspects of the production design provide decoration for sets, color also has other uses in movies. In some cases, color can be used symbolically. For example, in this scene from The Royal Tenenbaums, the character Richie is contemplating suicide. Blue is the dominant color in the production design, and a blue filter is additionally used to give a bluish tinge to the entire shot. Blue is a color that we associate with sorrow in U.S. culture, so the use of the color in this scene is symbolically linked to Richie's emotional state. Likewise, in this scene from Body Heat, the woman, Maddie, is trying to convince the man, Ned, to murder her husband. Red is the dominant color in the production design for this scene. Red is a color that we associate with danger in U.S. culture, and so the use of the color in this scene signals the dangerous situation that Ned finds himself in. We see the symbolic use of color in a slightly different way in films like Pleasantville and Medicine for Melancholy, both of which used a color grading process in post-production to bleed out most of the color, so that only selected areas of color remain in each shot. In Medicine for Melancholy, the colors are used alternately to symbolize moments of connection and moments of disagreement or contrast between the movie's two protagonists, as in this shot where the different colors of their shirts symbolically reflect more fundamental differences between them. While in Pleasantville, the symbolic uses of color are tied to both the plot and the themes of the film, as color literally comes into the lives of characters in the film as they take risks, become open to new experiences or ideas, or otherwise step out of their comfort zones. We see a similar thematic use of color in The Wizard of Oz, where the scenes set in Kansas are filmed in sepia-tone film stock, while the scenes set in Oz are filmed using Technicolor film stock. We also see this in Wings of Desire, where the protagonist can only see the world in black and white and from an emotional distance as an angel, but experiences the world in color after he makes the choice to become human. In the case of both of these films, as in Pleasantville and Medicine for Melancholy, we see intersections between production design and cinematography, as these symbolic and thematic uses of color in all four films depend not only on the colors chosen for the costumes and sets, but also the way that choices in the cinematography techniques used to film the movies affects the way that those colors show up on screen. Finally, when it comes to production design, color can be used to both draw and focus the audience's attention on a particular place, object, or person within the image. In this example from 500 Days of Summer, the furniture, decor, and props in the conference room, as well as the costumes worn by the characters sitting around the table, are predominantly in shades of maroon, gray, and white. The woman standing at the head of the table stands out, not only because she is positioned in the center of the image, but also because her green shirt and sweater are the only variation in color. When watching the film, our eyes will automatically go to her first because the color she is wearing makes her stand out from the rest of the content in the image. I just mentioned the props in the previous image. The last part of production design for this set is the selection and placement of the props, the objects that the characters use or otherwise interact with. In this example, the props include the lollipop the woman is eating, her drink on the bedside table, and the remote for the TV that is on her lap. All of these aspects of production design that we've been discussing, set design, decor, props, and color palette, apply to all movies. They are used in scenes that are shot using sets that are entirely constructed on sound stages, as well as scenes that are shot on location using already existing real-world places. This image is from the interior of the Ames Mansion in Easton, Massachusetts, which was used to film the majority of the interior scenes in the home of the character of Harlan Thrombey in the movie Knives Out. The mansion was chosen as one of the locations for the film because the architecture fit the general look of what the filmmakers had in mind for what the house should look like. But that doesn't mean that they just showed up and started filming. The production designer for the film still planned out specific designs for each room in which they filmed, and props and decor, like this art piece made of knives, were brought in to reflect the personality, interests, and career of the character. Production design in the case of location shooting is a good illustration of how this element of mise-en-scène is used to create the world of the film. This is the Bradbury Building in downtown Los Angeles. Originally constructed in 1893, it is one of the oldest architectural structures still standing in the city. Because of its distinctive architecture, it is also a popular location for filming, and it has been used as a setting in hundreds of movies. This is what it looks like in real life, in which it is an office building. This is what it looks like in 500 Days of Summer, in which it is an architectural firm. This is what it looks like in Blade Runner, in which it is an apartment building. And this is what it looks like in The Artist, in which it is a Hollywood movie studio. In all three cases, it's the exact same space. In fact, in the two images on the left, it's literally the same place within the building. The camera is just placed further away in the shot on the bottom. And yet, even in spite of its very distinctive architecture, the building looks very different in all three films thanks to the production design, which locates the building in three very different story worlds, with three very different visual environments and three very different vibes. In the same way that production design applies to both studio sets and location shooting, it also applies in the case of external locations shot using miniatures. This is one of the exterior sets for the film Blade Runner 2049, in which miniatures were used to visualize Los Angeles 30 years into the future. Production design also applies to movies in which sets are virtually simulated using computer-generated imaging, or CGI. This is one such example from the movie Black Panther, in which the country of Wakanda was created by digital effects artists working in conjunction with the production design team. As our look at the symbolic uses of color has already suggested, production design does more than just provide locations in which to stage the plot events that make up a movie narratives. Production design is also frequently used to communicate implicit meaning that, in the case of production design, is implied through visual elements, and that can either be used to provide the audience with story information, to create symbolism, or to emphasize the movie's themes. Our next video is going to look in more depth at this aspect of production design.